I've seen a lot of people really upset about the Argentinian beef controversy going on. If you do want to support American ranchers who are raising beef in the US and doing the right things, what you need to do is to buy beef in bulk.
So I'm sure everybody has heard, but Trump just said that we're going to bring in some beef from Argentina after we've already paid them billions of dollars. Well, if you want to go get some of that sagebrush, mesquite tree eating beef, go ahead and order you some of that, and you can go get that at the store. Actually, but you know what? On the ranch here, we got these premium ribeyes straight off the ranch, American USA beef. Good, nice Angus prime beef. You can get some of this at GLineRanch.com. But yeah, you can go order that. You can go get that store bought stuff from Costco that you don't know where it's coming from, Timbuktu or whatever. But we got premium beef, USA grown and homegrown. GLineRanch.com.
Husband and I started doing this. First, we started out with 1/8 of a cow. We really liked the idea. We did not need a separate freezer. It fit fine just in our regular freezer. Then we decided to up it to 1/4 of a cow, and that has lasted us about 6 months so far. We'll probably finish it through the end of the year.
I spent $2,000 on a half cow. Here's all the meat I got. Everything's grass-fed and finished, pasture-raised from a regenerative farm, starting with the daily driver, 64 pounds of ground beef. We had, I guess, regular ground beef, and then gourmet ground beef, which may be a bit leaner, I don't know. 64 burger patties, half of them had bacon. Now let's get down to business, the steaks. I got 8 ribeyes, 8 New York strips, 8 sirloins, and 8 fillets. Top shelf, we got our roasts, 8 total, 4 chuck roasts, 4 sirloin tip roasts, little more ground beef, 8 pounds of ground beef sirloin, 40 beef hot dogs, and of course, 8 pounds of beef stew. Grand total of 130 pounds of meat for $1,820. A half cow, and that's you, sold.
And then we've already put our name on the list with our farmer for next year for half a cow, and that should last an entire year. We did have to buy a deep freezer, but it was only like $150 at Lowe's. So all in all, it comes out to be about $7 per pound, and that includes ground beef, steaks, roasts, the bones, organs, all different cuts of meat. If you compare that to grocery store prices, it is way cheaper. Just grocery store prices, if you look at ground beef, it's like $10 a pound, so it's already better. So if you can save up the money to buy in bulk, you will get a much better deal and be able to support American farmers.
You've probably heard beef prices are up because the market's high. Yeah, that's what they want you to think. But the truth, they're using that excuse to sell you imported beef at American prices. And here's what's really going on. The big 4 packers, JBS, Tyson, Cargill, National Beef, controls nearly 85% of U.S. beef processing. When cattle prices rise at the American sale barns, they use it as a cover, a PR excuse to jack up prices of retail beef. But here's the dirty secret. They're not buying that beef from American ranchers. They're importing millions of pounds of cheap foreign beef, grinding it, boxing it, and labeling it product of the USA. So while you're told beef is high because the market's high, they're selling foreign beef at the same inflated price as real U.S. beef and pocketing the difference. Meanwhile, the actual beef raised here by American ranchers, they're exporting it overseas for premium prices, while leaving U.S. consumers stuck with overpaid, imported garbage. It's a bait and switch, and you're paying the tab. When cattle prices are low, they say, there's too much supply. When cattle prices are high, they say our costs went up. Either way, they win. It's not the family rancher driving up your grocery bill. It's the foreign-owned packing companies gaming both sides of the market. They've turned the beef aisle into Wall Street. The only real solution is to buy direct from American ranchers, from your state, from your region. Because when you buy from us, your money stays in your community, not some corporate account overseas. They'll keep blaming the market, but we know the truth. They didn't buy American beef. They just priced it like they did. They're exporting the good stuff, importing the cheap stuff, and charging you top dollar for both. That's not inflation, that's manipulation. And the only way to fix it is to stop feeding their system and start feeding your family from a real ranch.
I bought a quarter of a cow. This is what I got, and I'm about to tell you how much I spent for it. And listen, you can say whatever you want to say about me, but you cannot say I don't have the best beef in town. I have the juiciest, the freshest, the cleanest, that's a crazy statement. I ain't gonna lie. But how about we just stop saying pause? How about that? Let me just do a pan so y'all can see. It's more steaks. This is 70-30. This is about 30 pounds of ground beef. It's 70-30. Some heart and some liver in here. Like, I just blended everything together. And listen, I don't know who needs to hear this, but it's about time for you to start investing in your health. And this might seem like really crazy expensive, but I'm telling you, it's actually worth every single penny. Because going to Whole Foods to get steak that's not even grass-fed, and grass-fed is gonna cost you like $20 to $22 a pound. Bro, I can eat meat every... Listen, this can last me for the whole year. Not only is it grass-fed and grass-finished, but it's also halal. And for everything, I paid $1,004 for it. This is the cleanest meat you will ever find in America. Y'all gotta look at the color of this, bro. I'm marveling. Come on, man. And listen, I would recommend everybody to do this. Gather up with some people and go and buy a whole cow or buy a quarter cow. Because guess what? Less than 1% of the beef in the United States is actually grass-fed. So most of y'all, I would say 90% of y'all never really tasted authentic beef. Anyways.
Have you ever bought a cow? If you haven't, you should. And you may be saying, Brandy, why would I buy a cow? I can't afford a cow. Well, then buy a half a cow. If you can't buy a half a cow, buy a quarter of a cow. And if you can't do that, split it with another family or other families and watch what it does. So it depends on where you live. So when we lived in Buffalo, it was very, very easy to buy a cow because it was farm country galore. Now we live in Las Vegas, it's more difficult, but you can find a farm that actually ships, but a lot of farms only ship certain times of year. So you find one, or you may just have to drive out, but it is the best meat. It is so cost effective. But like I said, you have to be able to afford it. But if you can't, split it with another family member or a friend. And if you don't have a deep freezer, go on Facebook Marketplace and get you a deep freezer. And if there's none on there, plan accordingly, save a couple coins and get a deep freezer on Black Friday. When you buy the cow, you can tell them how you want your meat. So if you want, this many pounds and, and chuck, you want this many pounds, like you want them to put it in patties, you want this many loins, whatever it is, you can give a breakdown for your family and it will last you such a long time. And if you are a parent and you have adult children and you cannot figure out what to get them for Christmas, get them a cow. When I got my first cow, life-changing, okay?
All right, so we're here. We just picked up a fresh beef today. My favorite cuts is old ribeye. Can't never go wrong with a nice bone-in ribeye. Guys, check out GLineRanch.com. But that's not why I'm really here today. I've got this fresh beef here, and we've done everything on our ranch to stay sustainable. But what the government is trying to do is to import beef from Argentina to help offset, some of the cost and bring down beef prices. We are experiencing record pricing, but to be honest about it, majority of small producers like myself have not even captured those high prices, because we do all our stuff in the fall. Everything is seasonal. The big ranchers, the larger ranchers up north, they might have brought a lot of cows to the markets, but unfortunately, ranchers like myself, which majority of us are this way, we haven't received any, actually sold our cattle to get the money from these high prices and the supply and demand. For to see our government to kind of come in here, I don't know if you guys know or not, but the president said that he was going to import beef from another country to help lower prices. Why is that an issue, right? And then let me just tell you what this is. Let's just think about this. I've got this beef here I raised. Ain't none of it imported, right? I raised every piece of this meat was come off of this ranch, G-Line Ranch. And if you want to buy this, I got a half here for GLineRanch.com. But we raised this, and I don't have an option to help my profit margins to going to Argentina to picking up some meat to mix it in with my meat. There's going to be 4 major packing companies in the United States that's going to benefit from this. So we're going to save a few people's ass. And I'm just saying, it's kind of frustrating because in rural America, it's really where it needs to count. Small towns, right? People like me, I'm going to work. I'm doing everything on my ranch I can. My family and I, we raising beef. We raising cattle. We're feeding these cows out. We're cutting hay. We're deer processing. And we're doing everything in between to be sustainable. Maintain a full-time job with all of that. And I was really looking to every producer benefiting from these high prices. And then, so we're going to get, it's just like the food industry is under attack, right? So we got four major companies that are going to benefit. People who can buy and import beef. Those are the people who are going to benefit off of this, right? So they're going to blend that up so you can go to Walmart and those major stores and get your cheap meat and shop around there and buy all that other cheap foreign crap, right? And put in your body so you can go your ass to the hospital and keep on doctor and keep the circle going, right? But you don't want you to have some of this good stuff, right? We're gonna make it where drive people like me out of business. That ain't the way it should be. But unfortunately, that's just the way it seems to be right now. We need to really rethink of this. Our USDA team, Rollins, you guys making a bad move if you plan on continue to doing something like importing beef. It's not a good deal. It's a fair market. I did my fair job. I did what I was supposed to do. I did my part. And we really need to figure out what we're going to do with this. Let me just tell you, not only did the government say that, let's think about, they're giving discounts on trying to figure out how to repopulate the United States, right? So they're going to raise more people. They want to get more people in the United States. Just increase the population, but only supporting few people that can feed the population. I don't get it. Let me know what you think. Holler back at you from the G.
Come with me to pick up our entire cow, like a whole cow, y'all. We split this amongst 4 family members. The cow total was about $3,200, and each family member had over 100 pounds of meat, beef tallow, beef bones for broth and soup and things like that. The local rancher separate our meat into boxes. We had lots and lots of boxes, so it took us, about probably 10 minutes to load up the boxes. Everything was heavy. I think it was close to 500 pounds, including like the bones, the organs, and tallow. We went home to split everything evenly. We all had about 50 pounds of ground beef. We had probably 25 pounds of steaks, another 25 pounds of roast. I'm not doing the math exactly, but we all left with roast, ribs, steaks, tallow, beef organs, beef bones. We were able to customize the cuts and choose all of the different cuts and types of meat we wanted, as far as the top brown or sausages. We did get sausages. You can get stew meat, cube steak, different things, which we all did. And it came out to about, I think, $4 and change per pound of meat, which is a really good deal. It's local grass-fed beef at an affordable price. So we paid like that $4 and change, not only for the ground beef, but the ribs, the roast, the steaks, even the ribeyes, $4 a pound. Everything is more affordable and cheaper when you buy the whole cow, because you save per pound on how much you spend. This is us separating everything, and it all lasts about a year, a little over a year, about 13 to 16 months for some family members, depending on the size of their household.
When you start talking about the complicated subject of beef in a grocery store versus buying beef from a rancher directly, one of the most common questions I get is, why is it more expensive when you buy it from a ranch? Because you're cutting out a lot of the middlemen, so why doesn't that decrease the price? I'm Trinity Vandenaker, and welcome to Life in the West. So let's take hamburger for instance. Buying hamburger from a chain store like Walmart, the cheapest I could find was about $3.80.
We just bought a quarter of a cow, so let's see what all we got and find out if it's worth the money.
We got 6 T-bone steaks, 6 ribeyes, 6 sirloins, 3 chuck roast, 1 rump roast, 3 bottom round roast, 1 sirloin tip roast, 2 arm roast, 3 stew meats, 1 beef liver, 1 brisket, 71 pounds of ground beef, and beef tallow. This quarter of a cow was around 148 pounds of beef at an average of $7 per pound, which cost us a total of $1,037.
Okay, now let's get down to the nitty gritty and see if this is worth the money.
I would say that the biggest con is that you have to pay for all of this meat up front, and it can be pretty expensive. We paid a little over $1,000 for all of this, and it's not necessarily cheap. It comes out to about $7 a pound, which is a little expensive for ground beef, but it is a pretty good deal for steaks and some of the other cuts.
I think when you're factoring in steaks and the other cuts, it all kind of averages out.
Another con is how much room it takes up. We did have to purchase a small chest freezer in order to fit all of this in our garage.
For me, one of the biggest pros is actually the fact that I have a chest freezer full of beef anytime I need it, and I don't have to worry about buying beef from the grocery store for over a year. Y'all know we live a crazy hectic lifestyle, and I know most of y'all do too, so I love the fact that I don't have to worry about what's for dinner. I can always go get a package of ground beef or some steaks right out of the freezer and have dinner ready to go. The pro that trumps it all is the fact that you know exactly where your beef is from and what it was fed from the time it was born till the time it goes on its long journey home to the slaughterhouse. For the past 2 years, we've bought beef from a dear friend of ours up in Iowa, Scott Davison. He takes so much pride in the genetics of his cattle, and he has literally dedicated his life to raising the best quality beef possible. The beef that we bought is a mix of Black Angus cows with a Hereford bull, which creates a little black baldy, which is a cute little cow with a black body and a white little face, and I love them. So all in all, when you buy from a local farmer, you know that you are A, supporting a local American hard-working farmer, and B, you know exactly what you're getting out of your beef. There's no yucky chemicals or yuckiness that you don't want in your beef or in your body.
So for us, that makes buying beef in bulk totally worth it.
And you should too.
Cents a pound, where if you buy it directly from a rancher who's butchered it, it's about $5 to $6 a pound minimum. So why this discrepancy? One of the first things we have to understand is marketing. When you're reading labels in a grocery store like Walmart, a lot of it will be labeled like grass-fed or all natural. These labels can really mislead the person buying it to think they're buying the same product that they are directly from a ranch. So here's what those labels actually mean. So first of all, grass-fed. That's a kind of getting to be an overused term, and it can apply to all across the board. It's on a lot of labeling now. Here's the problem with grass-fed. It doesn't mean that all its life that cow or animal was fed grass. What it means is you can apply that to anything that was on grass for some of its life. That's about 99% of the cattle raised in the United States are on grass for some period of time, usually quite a bit of their life. To make any money in ranching, you have to keep your feed costs down. The only way you do that is to not feed hay. The least amount of time you can feed hay, the more money you make. That means the longer you have them on grass, the more money you make. The next one would be all natural. All natural can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. It can mean, when you picture all natural, you picture running out on the prairie, and grazing like cattle do in Montana and all these western states. But it could mean just that it's actually meat and fat. So it's actually meat and fat, and they're not adding vegetables or something. But even if you added vegetables, couldn't you say that was all natural? So you have to read labels in a way that you're deciphering marketing from reality. And I think that's very important when determining the difference in price between in the store and on the ranch. To really grasp the reason why it's more expensive to purchase from a ranch than it is from a grocery store, we have to understand the process that the beef goes from the field to the store and from the field to your plate from the rancher. So the first process is to a grocery store. The calf starts out by being born on a ranch somewhere, either in the west or the South or the Midwest or Texas, it doesn't matter. They're born someplace, usually raised on grass until they're 6 to 8 months old. Then they're sold as a weanling to somebody who runs them on grass. They're called grass calves at that point, and they usually go to places like Nebraska, eastern Montana, places with wide open areas of grass, because they're pretty wild at that stage. So they're run from the age of 8 months or so till they're a year and a half. Then they're sold to somebody that goes to a feedlot. In a feedlot situation, there's huge, vast numbers of cattle that are taken into lots, and they're fed whatever the cheapest feed they can get, corn or grain or whatever. So they can buy vast amounts of feed, and that brings down their feed cost considerably at the very end. So that is called finishing. So they finish out this steer, typically, or heifer, depending on what they bought. And then it is taken to one of the slaughter plants in the United States. It's typically one of the ones that does like 4,000 head a day. All the plant costs, everything, are distributed over a vast amount of cattle, which cheapens up the per pound. They take in cattle, boxed beef from outside the country, mix that with their meat, which cheapens it even more. And then with things like sausage and hamburger, they can mix in pelletized pink slime, what they call pink slime, or finely textured meat, which is now called ground beef by the USDA, which cheapens it up even more. Then they package it to whatever company wants to put their label on this. So any company can buy the beef from these companies, and they'll package it for them with their label and their brand. And it doesn't have to say, according to the rules of the United States right now, it does not have to say that it comes out from outside of the US. It doesn't have to label that it's mixed. It doesn't have to say any of that. It just says ground beef, all natural, grass-fed beef. Now, when you look at that process versus the process of the rancher takes his calf that he would sell at 8 months old and instead feeds it for a whole nother year till it's a year and 8 months old. And at that point, he has to finish it. So when you buy grass finished beef, that would mean they just leave them on grass or feed them grass hay until they're butchered. But if it's just grass fed and they want to finish them with grain or corn, they have to buy grain or corn or purchase grain or corn byproducts, which have a ton of benefits and create a lot of good marbling in the meat. And they're fed this finishing product until they're butchered. But to sell it to you, he can't go to one of these big plants. He has to go to a small plant because they don't accept outside cattle at these big plants. The problem is it can't be just any slaughterhouse or butcher shop. It has to be a USDA inspected plant. So he has to find one that has USDA inspection. Now, most of them went out of business years ago, but now they're getting them back in certain areas of Montana and the West. But it's going to be much more expensive for them to butcher 5 head of cattle or 10 head of cattle than it is for a company that is a $1 billion company and spreading that cost over 4,000 cattle. Butchering 15, 20 head a day, that is a lot more expensive per cow than it is over 4,000, if you understand me. Also, ranchers, when they sell you their beef off of their ranch, are not going to mix this off with something that from out of the country or mix it off with.
Beef producers are making a killing, huh? Well, it's really interesting. Let's talk about the fundamentals of the beef market so we can all get a little educated here before we start leaving comments on social media posts. So if you don't understand how the beef industry works, you have different segments of the beef industry. You have your producers that are either a cow-calf operation where they actually calve out new life. Then you have people that are in the stalker or backgrounder phase, which is where they grow these cattle out to a certain weight. And then when they hit a certain weight, then they go over to the feedlots. The feedlots then sell to the packers. The packers, or the meat packing industry, we commonly refer it to as the Big Four. The Big Four is exactly what it sounds like. There's only 4 massive companies here in the United States. One of them is Brazilian owned, by the way, that can produce and harvest enough beef, meaning that they get the live animal and they have a steak or meat on a plate at the end of the day, enough to really produce and sustain the United States demand and production cycle. So producers are not setting the price. Each one of those transactions is dependent upon what the packers were willing to pay. The only way we're going to drop our prices significantly in a rapid format is if we have a complete loss of demand, which is not exactly the answer for anybody. In fact, that would actually cause a lot of issues in the industry and on a global scale. But what I am saying is that when we're looking at the beef packers, that is a bottleneck type of financial situation. The packers will try to see which way they can make the most amount of money. The packers are never going to lose money, okay? The packers are always going to have some kind of profit margin penciled in. So when we're looking at what you're paying at the retail counter, again, this is not set by beef producers. If the packer decides to just cut off money and not pay anything else out for the rest of the year, then they can do that. If they don't think that there's going to be enough demand to actually make money, then guess what? All that high price cattle that you bought a few years or this year or last year, it's not going to pencil out for you, which really puts bankers at an interesting situation this year, because now we're looking at beef prices and how can you sustainably pay the amount of money that you're paying on a gamble that the packer is still going to pay the same prices that they are 13, 15 months down the road. So no, producers are not making hand over fist. For the first time, they're actually, sustaining themselves and be able to put food on their own plate, because guess what? We still have to pay taxes too. And all the money that gets made gets put right back into the operation. So if you don't know, you do now. Hope you learned something, and think twice before leaving comments on the internet, yeah?
As beef prices continue to rise and we, the consumers, are wondering what the heck is going on, as consumers, you might be interested in, so that you understand what has actually happened. It's a very complicated system. It's been made complicated over time, but there's one group in particular that I think you guys should be aware of. It'll help connect some dots for you as to what's happened. We're at the lowest number of farmers and ranchers, as most people know. We lost almost 20,000 ranchers a year for the last 5 years. And so we're down to somewhere around 600,000 ranches left in America. And one of the main drivers of that is this group called the NCBA, the National Cattlemen's Beef Association. See, back in 1996-ish, the National Cattlemen's Association, the National Packers Association, slaughterhouses, the Big Four, they came together. And as the saying goes, no man can serve two masters. Well, the packers were the ones controlling the market. That's where the final pass-through was to go to us, the consumers. And so naturally, the power there grew. And all of those decisions were made to benefit the packers and not the ranchers. And so as these decisions were being made, they squeezed our ranchers and farmers and benefited the big packers that are now the Big Four: JBS, Cargill, Morfrig, Tyson. And they're very corrupt. The people in NCBA do not care about you, the consumer. They do not care about the family farms and ranches. They only care about one thing, and that's their own bottom line. They claim to be the representative of the rancher. They are absolutely not. They are the representative of the packers. They just got $25 million from what's called the beef checkoff, which every rancher, every time they sell a cow, they have to put money into the checkoff. It's like a tax. NCBA gets that money and then perpetuates their own goals. And they pretend that they're here for the farmer and rancher, which is absolutely not true. So just wanted to share that with you guys as consumers. This is a very complicated world. Only the big guys are getting paid, and we, the consumers, and our small family farms and ranches have been destroyed over time, and now we're paying the consequences of that. Even now, with the New World screwworm knocking at the door in Mexico, these folks are perpetuating the lies that Secretary Rawlins is going to open the border and allow them to bring infected Mexican cattle up into our nation that will further devastate the American herds. We cannot allow this to happen. We as the consumers need to rally behind the independent cattle producers. Tell the NCBA to take a hike. Just be transparent that they are here for the packers and not the ranchers, and be honest about what's going on. Shake the hand that feeds you. It's Saturday. Get out to the farmers markets, meet a farmer and rancher, and help them stay in business so that we still have food on our plates when we really need it.
Hello, everyone. This is John with Campbell Creek Cattle Company. Just letting you know that we're all stocked up. Our website's you can look on there for our miscellaneous cuts. We do some of our Wagyu. This is a porterhouse Wagyu steak we've got available. We're going to sell these by individual pieces. You can come local pickup for the boxes, or steak or hamburger, whatever you need, you can pick that up in Campbell, California. Let's see, Thursday through Sunday. We're going to do that Thursday through Sunday, and then farmers markets once a month in Alpine at the Viejas farmers market. Okay, hope to see you soon.
Do you recommend people buy a half cow or a full cow?
Well, the only difference between the half cow and the full cow is, how much your family needs. A family of 4, a whole cow probably produce enough meat for a year. So if it's maybe just 2 of you or 1 of you, or you don't eat that much meat, then a half cow. Right now you can buy a half cow. So you're going to split it, but it'll be maybe somebody you don't know, but we can sell half a cow. The cuts will be already separated in the box that you get. Like a full cow would be like 12 ribeyes, 12 T-bones, 12 sirloins, and then a roast, a brisket.
How long does it take when someone orders a half cow for them to get it?
Typically, if we didn't have anything in stock and you ordered it, it would be like a month. In stock, it would be however long it takes to, go through the order or, and send it or figure out when you can come pick it up.
All right, so no, I'm calling BS. I'm going to call BS, okay, because there's no farmer or rancher in the United States of America that is going to want a president that is a socialist. Ranchers thrive off capitalism. If you don't know that, then reach out to somebody that has studied agriculture economics. I've done it for a long while. See, with a socialist economy, you'll have a lack of price signaling, you'll have lack of private ownership, you'll have lack of incentives, you'll have lack of all the things that make the world turn round. Okay, you'll have stuff like government overreach telling you what you can and cannot sell your product for. You'll have governments telling you can't ranch here, or you can't put your stuff here. There's too many, you're too close, and maybe you should just go work for another farmer. You have stuff like, you'll have food shortages. That's what happens whenever a socialist runs an economy. That's why ranchers don't vote for people like Kamala Harris. Okay, they thrive off capitalism because they want to be able to make the most money they can make for their product, whether it's cattle, whether it's corn, whether it's hay, it doesn't matter. They want to make the most money because at the end of the year, every penny counts to go towards the next year. But I'm going to bet you didn't know that because I bet your friend isn't a rancher and not a farmer. I bet you they're just homesteaders that have maybe 1 or 2 cows or a couple chickens or a goat or like a garden, like a 100-foot by 200-foot garden, if that. I'm calling BS on your whole comment. And it's not about Trump, and it's not about Kamala Harris. It's the fact that your comment's bullshit. And my apologies. I've had a little bit to drink.
One is beef prices going up. And so there's an impulse to say, hey, here's a trading partner that can bring in some beef for us, maybe help with that price. And then on the other hand, we're in a world where our farmers and ranchers are getting wiped out, 45,000 a year for the past century. Importing beef from yet another new place is kind of, not what we need to be doing over the long term. So I think my hope is that if they are going to be importing beef from Argentina, it's a very short-term thing, and that they're able to get back onto the America First approach. Because the reality is that if we do keep on importing beef from more places to replace what's going on with the Mexican screwworm or to deal with this trade issue or that trade issue, we're kind of just perpetuating the problem here, which is that American farmers and ranchers need to first and foremost be supplying our domestic food supply and then selling their excess abroad. Right now, we're getting it backwards as a country just for decades, where we're wiping out our domestic food supply and we're importing foods. There's security issues to having to rely on other countries for our food supply.
All right, man. So it's that time of the year again. Just got back from Richmond. Had to go meet up with the farmer because I had bought me the cow again. Had to go get my yearly cow. That's going to be my new thing. Especially with the way these tariffs and these Trump and the economy and all this shit. Hey, man, we had to go get that meat. Yeah, had to go get that pack. Had to go get that pack. What's up, man? Hold on. Had to go get that pack. Had to go get that pack. All right, so of course got the new deep freezer, but this is everything left from last year. It's just pretty much only thing we had left from a pack of short ribs, mostly just a bunch of roast left, a couple steaks, 1 or 2 steaks that was just deep down at the bottom of the other freezer. So that's all we got left. But I'm gonna fill this up. I'm gonna try to put this to the top. But yeah. So this the new one, and that's what we got over there. Now last time I had got like all the different cuts, different roasts and stuff, but this time I told him like, look, bro, I just want steaks and ground beef. Cause last time, you know, as you can see, we didn't eat all the roasts, and I gave some away because we had a lot. So this time I ain't giving away shit. And them kids ran through that fucking ground beef. So yeah, I told them I wanted mostly just ground beef and steak. That's it. But I'm about to fill this shit up and then let y'all see what it look like. All right, so I got the burger patties up here. This like 40 pounds. I told them to put them in the burger patties, and that's all that goddamn ground beef loaded up in there. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, still got all the steaks and shit left right here. Boy, look at that big ass motherfucker right there. Boy, you got to put that on the grill, boy. All right, so it's empty, and this is what it look like filled up. Half a cow right there. Niggas out here flexing shoes and bullshit. Open up your deep freezer, boy. That's what we talking about. All right, so all in all, what I paid was $19.57 plus the $400 for the butchering processing fee or whatever. But for the meat itself, that's what I paid $19.57. It was the cow hanging weight was 412 pounds. Multiply that by 467 per pound, hanging pound, and that's what you came out with. I mean, just in my area alone, you look at Walmart for like the two pound thing of 80-20 ground beef, which that's like meat filler and meat goo. You looking at $5.30 a pound. And when I cook for my kids, whether it be tacos or any like ground beef dish, I got to use like 2 packs. So that's like 4 to 5 pounds, anywhere between that. So anytime I cook ground beef, you looking at like basically around $30. They eat ground beef or spaghetti or tacos or whatever probably twice out of the week. $60 times 4, that's $240. Multiply that by 12. I mean, I'm already good right here. And like I said, this gonna last us pretty much the whole year. You know what I'm saying? So hey, y'all got y'all tax dollars back. Don't be running out there trying to book a flight, book a trip. You know what I'm saying? Buy your kids some J. Go on get you a little deep freezer. Go on find you a local farmer. Go on get you some of that meat. The meat you can eat. Well, I guess you could eat the other meat. Like eat and digest. You know what I'm saying? It's nutrient. But I guess that meat can be nutritional. But you know what I'm saying? Especially with this economy and how shit going and Trump doing all this extra shit. Like I said, ain't no telling what the price of these cows gonna be next year, or even if my farmer still even gonna have his motherfucking farm. You feel me? And I'm telling you, the quality is completely different. Even when you cook the ground beef, you cook that shit. You know how like on store ground beef, you get all that grease and liquid and shit like this shit right here. Nah, bruh. But yeah, just wanted to share that with y'all. But yeah, man, if you in 757 Virginia, North Virginia, whatever area, you know what I'm saying, hit up my boy Paul, you feel me?
Legislation that would benefit local farmers, ranchers, and meat packers has been reintroduced to the House of Representatives and needs your support. The PRIME Act would remove federal inspection requirements for custom meat packing facilities that act in accordance with state laws and sell the meat in state. Currently, custom meat packers are only exempt from federal inspection for meat that is destined for personal, household, guest, and employee use. As a result, most ranchers have to continually drive hours to federally inspected sites. The PRIME Act would allow the producers to sell their beef to in-state consumers, restaurants, hotels, stores, and establishments without federal inspection. Large beef groups raise some concerns with the PRIME Act, arguing that it would lower safety standards and undermine customer confidence in American beef. It is worth noting that these large beef associations are closely connected to the Big Four meat packers, which does raise questions as to why they oppose the PRIME Act. Small producers argue back that it wouldn't lower safety standards, but would rather shift inspection and review to the state level rather than the federal level, which ironically is often done by the same exact officials. If producers were able to develop their own sites or work with local butchers and packers, they'd save considerable time and resources and also have more control over the quality. There is an oligopoly in the beef packing industry which hurts beef producers, squeezes their margins, and gives them few distribution options. The act would give more power and freedom back to local farms, ranchers, and packers, and would give you as the consumer more access to locally raised meat. If all states could enforce comprehensive food safety inspection and ensure all meat is thoroughly reviewed before sale, which they can,
then this act will be a win. If you agree with it, it's important to communicate to your representatives that you want them to support the Prime Act. The other best thing that you can always do to support local ranchers is to buy beef directly from them. I've mapped over 1,000 on my farm map to make this easy for you. I also sell heirloom seeds and will be restocking them later this week and adding on new varieties. Let me know in the comments below what you make of the Prime Act.
This is a fantastic question, and let's get right to it. So, how do you find ranchers in the area that sell their own beef? That is a fantastic question. And one of the good ways that you could do it is if you go to Mr. Google and try and look for cattle ranchers in your local town or city, it'll drive you over to their websites. Usually there's always an email and a phone number listed there. Just give them a call or shoot them an email. Otherwise, talk to your local processor. Processor knows everyone who has beef that's selling beef, or also talk to the local feed store.
Annoyed because Costco won't cut this for you.
That's just roast. That's not a real steak. That's just chuck roast cut up.
Well, goddamn it. I made my way to Costco, and they had whole New York strip and sirloin available.
They just told me they don't cut.
That annoyed me so bad. So I just had to look. We really wanted the ribeye. They didn't have any. So we got the New York strip. So my man had to bust that pack down. But these cuts definitely could have been cleaner had the knife been a bit sharper. We really started cutting them off too thick. Then we OD'd and went a little thin. We got the scale out at this point. 12 ounces was our sweet spot. We got about 20 steaks out of a 14.5 pound package. Y'all let me know in the comments if you think this was worth it. After this, I'm def getting my half cow. Follow me to see more of my journey. Bye, soulmates.
You've heard of centralized banking, but what about centralized beef? Right now, 4 corporations control over 85% of America's beef supply, and ranchers everywhere, big and small, are saying enough. Small and large ranches alike are going decentralized. They're tired of the middlemen, packer politics, and market manipulation. Instead of selling to $1 billion corporations that pay pennies on the dollar, we're going direct to consumer, building on-ranch freezers, selling online, and shipping real beef straight to families who care how it's raised. It's not about being trendy, it's about survival. When feed, diesel, and fertilizers double and corporate packers still control the prices, ranchers realize the only way to stay alive is to take control. And the best part, going farm to table gives you the freedom to choose where your food comes from and how it's raised. Looking for the cheapest beef? Shop around through your local ranches and compare prices. Want premium prime plus beef? Find specialty ranches like ours that raise Wagyu. Prefer grass finished only? There are plenty doing exactly that. Want to support regenerative ranching? You can do that too. If you have a little land and want to raise the beef yourself, you can contact a producer, buy a feeder steer, and feed it out on your own pastures. You have that much power in a decentralized food system. When you buy direct, you get transparency, not marketing. Every decentralized rancher that I know will tell you exactly how your food was raised, what it was fed, and even whether vaccines were used, if any at all. And that's the beauty of decentralization. Real choice, real connection, and real accountability. The future of beef isn't in corporate factories, it's in ranches like ours. Decentralized beef isn't a trend, it's a revolution. Let me know in the comments if you have ever purchased straight from a farmer or rancher.
Thank you for watching Great Minds Blacks.